HPE Aruba networking has quickly addressed 3 critical flaws that could allow unauthenticated attackers to execute remote code on their Aruba access points. So if you're using Aruba access points, make sure you update as soon as possible. In a similar vein, yet much more funny, hackers could have remotely controlled Kia cars using only license plates, exploiting vulnerabilities that allowed almost instant access to key vehicle functions. This alarming flaw, which has now been patched, also let attackers gather sensitive personal information and add themselves as invisible users. But it's not all bad, because switching to Rust has dramatically reduced Android's memory safety vulnerabilities, dropping from 76% in 2019 to just 24% today, even though the majority of the codebase remains in older, unsafe languages. This proactive strategy has not only lowered vulnerabilities, but also improved developer productivity and code correctness. And finally, WordPress is still a hot topic, as WordPress.org has banned the WordPress engine from accessing its resources and has stopped delivering plugin updates to websites hosted on the platform, which stems from WordPress engine's alleged alteration of WordPress core features for profit. You're listening to the Daily Decrypt. HPE Aruba Networking recently fixed 3 critical vulnerabilities in their Aruba access points. These flaws could let attackers gain remote code execution on your devices. Attackers could do this through sending specially crafted packets to the PAPI UDP, which is PAPI UDP port 8211 on your Aruba access points, giving them privileged access to execute arbitrary code. So if you're running an outdated version of AOS or Instant AOS, make sure you update as soon as possible. As a temporary workaround, if updates are impossible today or this week, you can enable cluster security for Instant AOS 8.x devices, or block access to UDP port 8211 from untrusted networks for AOS 10 devices. The good news is that no active exploitation has been reported yet, and no public exploit code is available. But this is a pretty common access point, so make sure that if you're listening to this, you take those updates seriously. All right, this next one's a fun one. Cybersecurity researchers found serious vulnerabilities in Kia vehicles that could let attackers take control in just 30 seconds. And this isn't their old cars, right? This is cars made after the year 2013. And this comes through an exploit in Kia's dealership infrastructure, where hackers could register a fake account through a simple HTTP request. Then they can generate access tokens that would let these hackers access the vehicle's owner information using the vehicle identification number, or VIN, then issue some HTTP requests to get the dealer token, fetch the victim's email and phone number, then modify previous access to add the hacker as the primary account holder, then add the hacker's email as the primary owner of the vehicle. They could do all of this without sending any notifications to the actual owner of the car. Then once all of these things are done, hackers could unlock, start, or even honk your car horn remotely. Thankfully, these flaws were patched in August of this year after a responsible disclosure in June, and no evidence suggests that these vulnerabilities were exploited in the wild. The number of memory safety vulnerabilities in Android has plummeted, thanks to Google's decision to write new code in Rust, which is a memory-safe programming language. Memory safety vulnerabilities, which once made up 76% of Android's issues in 2019, have dropped to just 24% in 2024. That's a massive improvement. So how did they do this? Google started using Rust for new code back in 2019. They didn't rewrite the old C, C++ code, they just let it age. And vulnerabilities in older code tend to decay over time, while new, safer code means fewer bugs are introduced. And the results were better than they could have ever expected. Memory safety vulnerabilities aren't just fewer, they're way below the industry norm of 70%. This proactive approach shifts the focus from patching issues in a reactive way to preventing them altogether. Imagine that. So if you're an Android user, you can rejoice that you're likely going to experience a safer operating system. But The point of this story, to me at least, is for people higher up in these tech companies to think proactively versus just throwing resources at problems retroactively. You can make a difference in your company's future now, even though it might cost you a little bit of money. Think about the articles they will write about you. And finally, WordPress.org has just banned WordPress Engine from accessing its resources, cutting off plugin updates to WordPress Engine hosted sites. This drastic move comes after accusations that WordPress Engine altered a core WordPress feature for profit and blocked the dashboard's news widget to avoid criticism. And I want to correct my mistake here. I've been saying WordPress Engine. It's actually WP Engine, but over the radio, I think WordPress Engine sounds a little better. So when I say WordPress Engine, I mean WP Engine. But the reason this is such a big issue is that without these updates, thousands of websites remain vulnerable to security threats. And millions of internet users are at risk of potential hacks, which makes this a critical issue. And we're still only in the early phases of this block, but it's only going to get worse. Most likely, the plugins that these users and these sites have are updated as of now, but give it a couple weeks and they'll start to become out of date. If you are a WP Engine hosted WordPress owner, don't be scared of Amazon Web Services or other cloud providers that might be a little more technical. It's very easy to spin up a WordPress site using AWS. And they are not sponsoring this, don't worry. I just happened to host thedailydecrypt.com on AWS through WordPress, and it was quite easy to set up. Because really all you can do at this point is to change your hosting platform for your WordPress site. WP Engine has been blocked. You will not receive any more updates. Thus, it makes it very risky to continue to host your site on WP Engine.
This has been the Daily Decrypt. If you found your key to unlocking the digital domain, show your support with a rating on Spotify or Apple Podcasts. It truly helps us stand at the frontier of cyber news. Don't forget to connect on Instagram or catch our episodes on YouTube. Until next time, keep your data safe and your curiosity alive.